Welcome to Mission Possible. I'm your host, Marina Hanna, and today, by God's grace, we'll be asking the questions: how to be unassuming and quiet, and at the same time draw people to Christ and be attractive to them, and how do we witness to people in conduct and in humility. I'm joined here by my brothers.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hi, I'm Abram.
And Daniel.
Wonderful. So today's scripture is from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1 and 2. And here St. Paul is saying, "I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long-suffering, bearing one another in love." And in another translation it said, "Be completely humble." So I wanted to ask you guys, is it harder to witness in conduct and humility? Or is it just, is it easier to just go out and speak and say things but not actually be living them? And also, sorry, how does our enemy the devil fight us with humility especially?
I think the best example we can take are the Pharisees, and how they preached so many things, and they were supposed to be humble, but they weren't, and to the point that Jesus said, "Follow what they say, but don't follow what they do," kind of thing. And I think that's one of the things that the Pharisees lacked, was the humility part.
And there's an entire chapter on it on
Exactly.
to the Pharisees. Exactly. No, you're right.
And I think because our God is a humble God, and we can see that from everything, starting from his birth all the way to the death on the cross. So and the Bible calls us to have the mind of Christ. So in order to have the mind of Christ, the number one thing we must have is humility.
I like how you say that, because his entire journey here on earth was to show us the perfect example of ministry, right? Perfect example of how to be, how to act, what to say, when not to say, and to preach in conduct, not by what we say, but really by what we do in the lives that we live. But I mean, the point of humility, it's why does the devil fight that one so much? Why does he come and feed us lies? He's the prince of all lies. Comes and tells us, "Oh, you're great, and you know what, you're good like this." But why does he do that?
I think humility he fights you most on humility, because it's the opposite of the gateway. It's the gateway to all other good virtues that God kind of gives to you. Once a person is humble, essentially the reason they're humble is because they've kind of let themselves go into Christ, to God, right? And once you do that, then the devil loses, right? So he has to fight you on it. Any second he gets a whiff that this person is starting to think, "Okay, I need to humble myself, he's losing right that second, so he has to fight you on it.
Exactly. I think when we're humble, we see God in his glory, and us in how big we are, right? And that's something the devil doesn't want. Have you guys had experiences of that, when he just really puffs us up?
I think especially living in Canada and trying to represent God, right? In a developed country I'm referring to. I think sometimes if you don't have humility, I think people won't be as receptive to what you have to say. Because I think humility is more than just words. It's your actions, the way you look, the way you smile, right?
Definitely.
So when you're humbled, right, you're kind of drawn down, and in the sense of, not that you're meek or you're better than me. It's just do you know what? I see greatness in you as well. So people, when you start speaking to them, I think they're more receptive to what you have to say. So humility is definitely, I think, is the first step that anyone has to take in their Christian faith.
I love how you say that. Exactly.
And the reason why I say that is because, Christ's birth is just a perfect example of that, right? Humility. And it was from that, he's got the whole kingdom. People were drawn to him. Yeah, there was times he went to people, but there was times when he was in the desert or wherever, and people came to him. I know John the Baptist, he was just so humble, he refused to take anything with him, right? All he had was his camel skin, and he ate honey and locusts, right? And he was in the desert, but because he was so humble and he was preaching the truth, right? People came to him, and that's that I was challenged by that. I was like, how do we go out and we capture people? But I believe if you're truly humble, right, and you're preaching the truth, you won't need to have a marketing kind of campaign,
Yeah.
right? People will be drawn to ask you, like, they'll see something in you. There's something in there. They're like, hey, man.
And God definitely, He's the one who makes people see that. Like, I was just having a friend, and she's like, someone came up to me, she's like, why do you have this peace in you? Why? Like, look at everything that's going on around you. But God makes people see the things. He makes them see the virtues that He has put in us. And I mean, you guys have said it, but just to quote St. Augustine on this, and he said, humility is the foundation of all other virtues. Hence, in the soul in which this virtue does not exist, there cannot be any other virtue except in mere appearance. A lot of fakeness going on, like if we're not humble. Have you guys experienced that, seen the effects of that? Or what are your thoughts on this?
I think if we're going to look at it through missions, if we look at one of the biggest examples I feel I came across recently was washing of the feet. And washing of the feet, Jesus did it, and He was specifically saying, I'm doing this to you, and even though I'm the greatest, then I'm the lowest. And that's what He teaches us to do, and that's what we need to be doing. If we're going out in missions and talking to people about God, or not even talking to people about God, are we willing to wash people's feet? And obviously, opportunity of washing somebody's feet is not something that you're going to encounter, but are you willing to go to the extents where you stop caring about yourself, you stop caring about what you are going to be perceived or what you're going to look like, and love that person? And
what is that? I mean, that just gives me the question, what is modern day washing the feet? You said yes, like maybe, it'll come around when you do actually physically wash someone's feet, but what is the modern day of it? You're saying when we go out to serve, like, what does it mean? You said we humble ourselves like Jesus Christ did, right? How do we do it here, modern day?
You don't marginalize the person that you're serving. Most of the time, when you're going to go, again, when you're out in service, it's just by virtue of you being seen by the person you're supposedly serving as the servant. There's already almost like you're taking on a position of somewhat authority, right? So key is when you're speaking to the person, when you're acting with the person, is not to marginalize them in your action. Treat them as an equal.
I think there's a hidden beauty and grace in just serving, right? And just really giving someone the idea that I am here to serve you, just like Jesus served the disciples. Like, this is what I'm doing here too. Like, I don't put my own self and my pride and everything aside, and I'm just gonna serve you. I think rarely we encounter that, and I just thinking about it, like, it really makes me smile. Like, if I had someone like that and they said, I'm just here to serve you, like, So going back to the getting people to notice the difference in us and really the Christ in us, how have you guys from experience felt that people react when they see something different in you? They excited? Are they like, where'd you come from? How have people perceived? And if people haven't perceived, then we clearly have been doing a terrible job. But
I think one of the things I think I got asked once was, do you live here? Do you live here today?
That's such a compliment.
And obviously we're talking about humility here, so I will have to say that whatever changes that I've gone through, and we've all gone through changes, but it's I think acknowledging the fact that I wasn't changed because I woke up one day and decided, hey, today I'm going to be a better person. No. There are things that there are habits that people have, there are things that people are, a way of life you're accustomed to, and which could not necessarily be the best way of life. And changing that is going to require something higher, a higher power than you could ever accomplish yourself. And that's where the point of the grace of God comes in and changes you. And I think it's personally, God has been working with me and changing a lot of things and pointing out a lot of my flaws.
Yeah, refining.
But at the same time, the change that has been happening has been very over time. And then when people see that, especially my close group of friends who not necessarily are Christians or not, but when they see that, and they ask, it's a great opportunity to tell them bluntly, and hey, this is called grace. It's called God's gift. It's not something that I've done, and it's something that if they're a Christian, it's something that you can tell them. Well, what's stopping you from experiencing God's grace? And it's as simple as asking that question. But if it's somebody that's a non-Christian, this is where it's an opportunity to tell them about the cross, tell them about humility, tell them about who God is and why does He want to change you.
Yeah, I think like you said, like our lives, our testimonies are something nobody can renounce. Nobody can tell you, no, you didn't have this.
Exactly.
No, you didn't feel God. Like that's something untouchable. Nobody can come, like you were saying, close to that. But I'm afraid that sometimes it's just a mere appearance. Like St. Augustine was warning about. Like, why do we fall into that trap where we think we're humble, and really it's.
See, Marina, I have something to say about that one. I think humility is a choice, right? You can choose to be humble. And I think when we accept Christ in our life and we're baptized and all the procedures that are involved in it, I think if we don't learn, right, to humble ourselves, right, God will humble us. And I remember there was times where I prayed and I was like, God, you know what, I'd rather humble myself before you humble me, right? Because I'm just like, whoa, this might be a bit tough up in here. So humility is important in that kind of sense, because if you don't choose and practice in it, you know, something will happen and God will humble you. So like a message that I felt that recently was like, Daniel, do you know what? I think you should humble yourself before I humble you. But I tell you what's good as well. Like, I'm fortunate I have good friends because they put me in check. You know, and then with the father of confession as well, they put you in check. And it's important sometimes from like every other week, once a month, right? You have like, I remember with a group of my friends where we sat down together and in a circle we were saying, hey, you know, this, you know, recently has been like this and it's been affecting me. And then someone will say the same thing about me. And I'm like, really? I didn't even realize. And it was humbling because, yeah, there's a bit of hurt where you're like, oh, really? I didn't even acknowledge that. And sometimes we're all like in our bubble thinking, yeah, I'm living for Christ, I'm doing Sunday school and whatever. And like humility, and you're like, yeah, I'm trying to be humble. Oh, Daniel, you're amazing. And you're like, oh, thank you, you know. But really, you know, but sometimes you miss it. And that's why sometimes I think it's important to be in a group of friends and like, you know, that can put you in check of humility, and you need to do it for yourself as well. And that's where I've recently been to conferences where I learned quiet time is important as well. Yeah,
that's true. I'm going to try not to add anything to what you said, because that really is the message of today. Like, we are to work on our humility. Like, it's not just something given by the grace of God, and it's not something we do by ourselves. It's, like you said, it's both things that come together. And if we humble ourselves, the Lord will lift us high, and people will look at our lives and they will see God, and they will see that we are Christians, not by what we say, but really more by our humility and by our conduct, and ultimately by our lives. I thank you guys for watching, and remember the Great Commission to serve our Lord.